I think that one of the best ways to accelerate Bitcoin adoption is to get your friends and your family and the people around you to start understanding and talking about Bitcoin. So, how you would do this is you would talk to them about it and you would talk about the problems that you have on a day to day basis. So, for example, many of you would be surprised, but I go to a barber and I get my beard trimmed. So, I went to my barber over the last, let's say, I've been going to the same guy for a few years now. I took a pause in between and then I started going back again maybe 6 months ago. And in that time, we've been talking about how the cost of living is going up, how his materials, the stuff that he's using, because he uses those blades, right? Those barber blades, the shaving blades to cut your beard. His like the sprays are getting more expensive. His rent is getting more expensive. Everything is just getting more expensive. And he was talking to me how he was talking to me about how he has barbers who are coming in, new barbers who are coming in, and they have to pay him a certain amount for the seat, but they are very they're not happy to pay more, even though the cost of everything else is rising. So I was telling him about how there's an escape. There's a way to leave this, and there's a way to stack something else instead of dollars, other than dollars, because he just holds on to dollars. Otherwise, he's Muslim. He doesn't invest. He doesn't have a mortgage. So he's against interest and all that stuff. So I had to tell him Bitcoin is digital gold. And when I mentioned that to him and he went to talk to his priest, he got it. He figured it out. And within a couple weeks, I was paying him in Bitcoin. So I've been starting to pay him in Bitcoin from now on. I'm going to keep paying him in Bitcoin. And he's happy. He wants me to pay him in Bitcoin because so one thing is that I've explained to him and I've orange pilled him on how Bitcoin is going to go up forever. And then the other thing is that I give him a little bit extra to give him an incentive to take the Bitcoin. So let's say, for example, if I was supposed to give him $20, I'll give him 25 or I'll give him 30 in Bitcoin, right? So he's really happy with that. He gets a little bit extra. And I've looked at his wallet. He shows it to me. I'm not going to steal his Bitcoin, of course. He showed it to me. He hasn't sold anything. So he's been collecting this Bitcoin from me for maybe, I think it's been 2 months now when I sent him the first Bitcoin payment. I just wanted to show him like how it works. There wasn't even a reason for it. I just sent him like $10. It's just to show him how quick it is. And that Bitcoin that he had is up a little bit, but he's kept everything. He hasn't sold anything. And I think, and we were talking about this before, Jor was mentioning how Barbers may be the best way to, I guess, spread this idea.
Growing adoption. Yeah. Well, first of all, congrats, Rajat. How much do you pay? I was thinking while you were talking there, how much I used to pay for a haircut versus today. And I'm pretty sure in like the last couple of years, it's gone from $20 plus a tip to like $32 plus a tip now.
Yeah.
So it's no joke.
Cheap. That's actually cheap. So the place that I went to before, they used to charge 15, then they went to 20, then 25, then 30, and it kept going up. Now it's 50 for the beard plus your haircut. So I only get my beard done, so it's 25.
Yeah. So I mean, they're feeling it for sure. And I've had the same kind of conversation with my hairdresser or barber, whatever you want to call them, for a couple of years now, and I still haven't made like my first full payment in it. But I do. The thing that I've tried to do, because I think the problem that a lot of hairdressers have, unless they actually own the salon or the barbershop, they're just barely getting by. And so when you try to pay somebody in Bitcoin, they don't really know how to convert that into dollars. They understand like the need for it and that they should have it, but they're kind of paycheck to paycheck. They're surviving haircut to haircut. So one thing I tried to do is pay her in fiat and then tip her in Bitcoin. So it's the same kind of thing. And she has a young kid. So it's, we've talked about the longevity of that and saving in Bitcoin for her kid versus like an RASP here in Canada. And she gets it. So I think that's kind of the first step. I love that. And I think that barbers are the number one, I hate the term orange pill, but like way to orange pill and accelerate adoption because two reasons. Number one, actually three. I'm going to go with three reasons here. Number one is that they talk to a lot of people. That's what they spend their whole day doing, is talking to people. Long conversations too. So if you orange pill somebody or get them into Bitcoin, they're going to tell a lot of people. And people like that are very effective in the Bitcoin network. Number two is like the only person you get to talk to for more than 2 minutes in a day. Like you're walking in the grocery store, see somebody on the street, at the gas station, whatever, you say hi, how's the weather, blah, blah, blah. And then you move on with your day. It's a very shallow surface level conversation. But with your barber, you're usually there for 20 or 30 minutes. And so you get a chance to actually dive into some of these topics, including Bitcoin, because it's not something you can say in 1 or 2 sentences. Like you have to identify the problem, present the solution, and it takes some time. And then the third thing is barbers, more than anybody, I think, understand the importance of cash, right? Like they live for cash. And if you can send somebody a payment over Lightning or Liquid or eCash, to me, that's the equivalent of cash, except better. But to them, it's the exact same thing. If I send my barber $5 worth of sats, it's the same kind of thing as me handing her $5 bill. Nobody knows it came from me. Nobody knows she has that. She didn't enter her identification or phone number or anything into that Lightning wallet. So that's why I think that barbers are the most effective people to help accelerate Bitcoin adoption.
Yeah, I think you're right about all those points, but especially the fact that you need to be able to spend some time with somebody for them to actually begin to understand the value proposition of Bitcoin
And to trust you.
And to trust you. Yeah, exactly. So you've been going to this barber for 2 years. You've been paying for 2 months in Bitcoin. So, that person knows you, you've shown up, like you've built some form of trust there. If you are in the checkout line at a grocery store and you talk to the cashier, there's no way you're getting into what sound money is, what Bitcoin is. Like it's just not happening. And you shouldn't, it's not even really worth doing. Right. So like, a lot of people, they focus on at first, once they get into Bitcoin, trying to talk to their friends and family. And that also does make sense because you're going to spend time with those people. And it takes time to have these conversations where they might get a little bit of information about it. And the next time you meet them, you tell them one extra little thing about it. And then they might ask you questions, right? It takes time to build up. It takes time to guide people down the rabbit hole if that's something that you want to do. But friends and family, there's no reason to transact with them necessarily. Like, although I have orange pilled some of my family from like, from them buying me something and then me having to pay them back. And hey, what if I pay you back in sats, right? So there's a sort of a transactional situation there. And that's why it works so well with the barber, right? Is there's a reason to exchange value. And then that brings up the ability to use Bitcoin. So I think there's all those things sort of combine to make a barber a really unique orange pill.
I think you also want to talk to those specific people, like your family, your barber, because you care about their finances, right? Like, let's say, for example, if my barber were to go bankrupt, then, or if he had to close his shop, or he couldn't do what he does anymore, then I'm gonna have to find another barber, right? That's really annoying to me. And I think that having Bitcoin will probably accelerate his business, right? It'll help him to grow. Maybe he'll be able to do more with his time. Maybe he'll become more prosperous, and I'm happy to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, slap we accept Bitcoin here sticker on the door and just see what happens, right? There's zero risk. Nobody's not going to go there because you accept Bitcoin. But if somebody like Rajat has an option between 3 or 4 barbers and one of them accepts Bitcoin, he's probably going to go to the one that accepts Bitcoin. So I think it's good for the longevity and sustainability of businesses. And I think the one thing that I was going to say, they're kind of going off of what Forrest was talking about and Rajat. But when I think about these businesses who are slowly starting to accept Bitcoin, I think a really good strategy for them is just to actually keep the sats in Bitcoin. Because for the most part, if you're a business, you probably have decent profit margins of like maybe 20, 30, some percent. And I think if based on the amount of people who would actually pay in Bitcoin, you're probably not going to lose much. Like you're not going to have to take from your own pocket or sell your Bitcoin. So I think that's a good strategy for business owners, like small businesses, just to start accepting Bitcoin, and whatever you receive, just put that into Bitcoin and leave it there, right? Like don't try to be swapping back and forth and paying bills with some of the Bitcoin you got. I think there's few enough, like small enough percentage of people who will actually pay in Bitcoin that you can kind of just set that up as a longer term reserve for your business. And, you can, or you can't, you may or may not, share that information with the people who want to know about it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, as a Bitcoiner, if you have a business and you start accepting sats, that's the best possible way to stack, in my opinion. There's not going to be any spreads. There's no fees. There's a layer of being anonymous within that. There's all sorts of benefits from it. Yeah, what do you guys think? So, like, we've been talking about this being all, real positive, but I can just see the comments right now. Why would I want to spend my Bitcoin? I think that's just
Yeah.
like the first thing that people think about in this situation is, why would I ever want to spend my Bitcoin? If it's good money, I could spend the bad money. Why would somebody want to use Bitcoin?
I love spending Bitcoin. I love it. I love spending sats. I don't know why. I bought ghee, great
Oh yeah,
ghee on Noster. I bought a 32-ounce jar of what is it? Basically like
it's
animal fat.
purified butter.
Yeah. And it cost me a lot, like an arm and a leg for it. But I'm happy to support businesses who are accepting Bitcoin, who are growing on Nostr, using things like Nostr to grow their business. But the other fact that I always go back to is, like, either way, if I want to buy something, I'm sending that person value. So that's how people should be thinking about it. You could send it in Bitcoin, you could send it in fiat, you could send it in whatever you want to. You're sending somebody else value. The only thing that matters is how you store that value. That's where Bitcoin is the benefit here. So I have no issues with it. I love doing it. And really, to me, it's just a big FU to like the system, right? Because I can buy things without the banks. And to me, that's extremely powerful, because the more people doing that, the more often they're doing that, the more obsolete those entities become.
And I think the interesting thing here is you're going to see over the next, let's say, few years, let's say you go and buy the same um, jar of ghee again. You're going to see that the price goes down in terms of Satoshis, which is amazing. I think seeing that, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to pay for, when we went to Steak and Shake, I wanted to pay for my burger in Satoshis when I could have paid with my credit card, because at that time I know that my burger cost me 16,000 Satoshis. I'm going to remember that and I don't remember the price of anything, right? I'm going to remember I paid 16,402 Satoshis for that burger and that meal at Steak and Shake. So next time I go, if it costs me 12,000 Satoshis, that means that any Satoshis that I have are increasing and it's showing that they're increasing in purchasing power. They're going to keep increasing. And then the following time I go, maybe it'll cost 8,000 Satoshis, then 7,000, then 4,000, right? And it'll keep dropping and that's the benefit. Whereas with the dollar, you're going to see that your cost keeps rising. Like have you guys seen those videos where people they show you what they had in their cart, in their Walmart cart? And
yeah, it's crazy.
Insane.
Right? It's like 16 items. Last time it cost them $83. Now it costs them $246, right? It's crazy. It's insane. And that's what happens when you have fiat. That's partly why I want to show my barber that you should accept Bitcoin. You should own Bitcoin. And there's also the other side of things, right? If I were to pay with a card, how much would he pay in fees? Maybe 3 to 4%.
Yep.
Yeah. And you're facilitating the fiat system when you do that too. You're supporting that system. If you spend in Bitcoin, you support the Bitcoin network, and you leave that Bitcoin with somebody else. And I think what George said is so key, where you should be thinking about Bitcoin at storing your value in Bitcoin, but it actually doesn't matter what you spend. Like it matters on these little layers, right? Like supporting the fiat system or the Bitcoin system or whatever. But that value is coming out of your balance and going to somebody else, whether it's dollars or Bitcoin. So you can replace, if it's Bitcoin, you can replace that Bitcoin. If you have dollars, right, you can spend and replace. And if it is Bitcoin that you've sent to somebody, you're now increasing the balance of their Bitcoin holdings and leaving that with them. And as we sort of talked about earlier, where a lot of people will just leave it in Bitcoin, right? Your barbers just left it in their balance. They're not switching that back, and they'll see that value grow, and that'll be the seed that grows into the tree of them being like, well, why am I only just accepting this when Rajat pays me in it? Maybe I should advertise and tell other people, hey, I accept Bitcoin, or maybe I should buy some Bitcoin, right? And then that's the network effect, right? That's the network effect that grows this entire system. The other benefit I'll just quickly add here too is all of these businesses, if we onboard people, if we get people to accept Bitcoin, then we can spend Bitcoin. Bitcoin becomes more useful. And if there's ever a situation where you're not able to spend dollars, you can still go get your beard cut. You can go to a butcher, get meat, and there's nobody telling you can't. If you're not allowed to use dollars at a Black Swan crazy event that you're not allowed to use dollars anymore, you're able to spend your Bitcoin, which adds to the use case of Bitcoin, which makes Bitcoin more valuable. That's what this is all about.
Have you guys ever thought that that could be what happens with, let's say, CBDC, where they just say, hey, you can't use your old dollars anymore. Now you get a monthly stipend, and this is the only dollar that you can spend.
Or
Could
this
you
is
guys imagine?
the only place you could spend it at, right?
Yes.
Like you can spend your CBDC
Yeah.
at the state approved apartment building.
McDonald's.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The seed oil food factory, whatever, right? Like
They're doing that for food stamps. They're stopping people from buying. I mean, I know the intention is positive, but they shouldn't be able to control somebody, right? The intention is okay. So what they're doing, just for the viewer, if you don't know what the context here is, they're basically stopping people from being able to buy junk food with food stamps, and I think that's a good thing.
Wow.
Yeah, there are people who are seeing that happening, and their food stamp benefits are decreasing. I don't keep in mind, I don't know the entire extent of what's going on here. I can't give you the details. I've seen a couple of videos, I've seen a couple of news reports where they're talking about how the amount of money that you can spend on junk food is decreasing. And who knows, maybe they could do that with CBDCs. What if they say your dollars are no longer going to be usable, the old dollars, you have to use CBDCs. You have to bring in your old dollars. You have to exchange them for the CBDCs. Otherwise, Walmart won't accept your dollars. Otherwise, Google is so big, and that's why what we were talking about before with the APKs. That's why that affects so many people, because you can't sideload apps now. So because the dollar is such a big system and so many people rely on it, I think that Bitcoin creates that parallel system where if you want to do something that the dollar doesn't allow you to do, you can still do it.
yeah, it's
Right? If you
freedom.
want to buy too much meat, right? Let's say you want to buy, instead of buying the low quality meat, you want to buy the higher quality meat, and you have a certain amount of meat that you can buy per month. You can now pay your barber in you can now pay your butcher in Bitcoin, and you can buy that meat from them. And I'm telling you, over time, the cost of that meat is going to keep decreasing and decreasing. You're going to have to pay less in terms of Satoshis for that meat each time you go to your butcher.
I mean, there's real dystopian future possibilities of when we're looking at like really controlled money, right? Like food stamps are kind of an example of a controlled uh, type of money, an exchange instrument, right? That you're exchanging this food stamp for another good. That's the purpose of money to some respect. And they're able to control what you can and can't buy with it, right? And that's because they give it to you, right?
Yep.
And you're sort of subjected to that. You have no ability, you have no control over anything like that. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum is Bitcoin, where you have ultimate control of it. You can actually own it yourself. No one can take it from you. No one's giving it to you. You have to acquire it. And yeah, so the system, the medium of exchange system that we build should also have those freedom incentives built into it as well, you know, so that we're not forced to use a CBDC and buy textured soy protein instead of ground beef, right? Like, you know,
100%.
Yeah.
I think that grasshopper
Grasshopper flour.
Yeah. Yeah. The cricket meal or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, but it's kind of coming right before our eyes right now. Like, it's fun to joke about, but I really do see a future where it's not going to be one or the other. Like, when people are trying to predict the future, it's not going to be like everybody's going to be using CBDCs or everybody's going to be using Bitcoin. Probably not within our lifetime anyways. There's going to be people doing different things. And the people who are reliant and compliant with the state are going to be forced to abide by their rules. And the people like us who say, no matter what the circumstances are, I'm refusing to use your CBDC. We're going to build our own communities here. And I think that you have to factor this into every decision you make throughout the day, whether that's spending in Bitcoin or spending in fiat, using Twitter or using Nostr. Each one of these things, that's how you vote. You vote with your time, your attention, and your money. Way more important than a ballot box. So these are the kind of things you got to be thinking about as you make these decisions of how you want to transfer value to other people, what kind of future you want to see. That's what kind of dictates how you spend your money.
Yeah, completely agree. It's so important that we get people to figure this thing out before it's too late.
Yes.
Because once it's too late, there's going to be a point. I think you made a video there, Jor, about that. There's going to be a point where you can't take self custody. You're not going to be able to buy a wallet, right? That time is leaving. That you're not going to have that time anymore. And then Forrest, you made a video about how Bitcoin is max pain, right?
Mhm.
So max pain here is probably going to be that you figure out Bitcoin at a late enough time that you can't take self custody. You have to buy the ETFs. No Bitcoin is available to take self custody of. You have to buy it through the ETFs, and then you can't take self custody. You can't do anything with it. So the max pain here would be that you figured out Bitcoin, you figured out all the benefits, but now it's out of reach and you can't get it, and you have to work for it, right? So instead of, let's say at that point, let's say you're making $30 an hour today, you can exchange that into Bitcoin. Let's say, just to round the numbers out, you can get 30,000 Satoshis per hour. At that point, if you're working for self-custody Bitcoin, you'll probably get maybe 5 Satoshis an hour, 15, 20 Satoshis an hour, because the value will be so high, the US dollar's value will be so low, the purchasing power will be so low that you won't be able to get Bitcoin for your US dollars anymore. And I know this sounds ridiculous to a lot of people. This probably sounds crazy. Like, we're not even close to that yet, right? That's just how most people think. But at some point, the governments and the people who lead these systems are going to want to close those escape hatches.
Mhm.
They're not going to want you to be able to leave. They're not going to be able to want you to not foot the bill for inflation, because if people are leaving, that means that inflation is now concentrated with a very small group of people, and they really feel it, and they start rioting and they start going crazy, because now they're the only ones who are dealing with the inflation. The governments are going to continue to spend like crazy, but if people don't want to hold on to the dollar, then their spending is going to still happen, but they're just going to have to spend more and more and more. They're going to have to find people who are willing to accept dollars, and whatever things that they need to buy with those dollars, they're going to have to pay way more for them, because there's going to be nobody who's willing to accept dollars.
And in that scenario, this is how I see that scenario playing out. There being a massive premium on self-custody Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I think right now there's actually a premium on custodied Bitcoin, because if you buy an ETF, there's an expense ratio. So you're getting less Bitcoin every year, and you're paying to have that custodied in that ETF. So it's actually more expensive in that, based on that expense ratio. But I see a future where but that's within its own ecosystem that can be controlled and can't be used for the purpose of a medium of exchange. You can't send an ETF to somebody as payment, so it's less useful as money. So I see a future where these things will trade at a discount compared to self-custody Bitcoin. Self-custody Bitcoin will be at a premium based on that.
Yeah, I can see that.
I hope so. I mean, it's there's one certainty here, which is the value of your fiat is going down.
Yeah.
And so that's why we call Bitcoin a solution to a problem that 8 billion people face. And so when you're thinking about this stuff with friends and family, start there. Like, you don't have to complicate things. Like, tell them you can store your wealth, your whatever you take home after the month or 2 weeks. Instead of a fiat, you put that in Bitcoin. And nobody has the ability to print more Bitcoin or create more Bitcoin. And so the wealth ownership that you have within Bitcoin is going to be much stronger than holding it in fiat. And so it's a problem that 8 billion people face. And Bitcoin is the solution to that. And I think if you're looking for a way to really drive that home to somebody, just mention that. You don't have to worry. You don't have to think too much about like the decentralization, the immutability of it, the ability to send with a QR code beside Forrest's head there. Just like, it's a better way to preserve your wealth. Simple.
Yeah. Well, it's just like what Rajat started this with, right? He started talking about the cost of living with his barber, and
everybody's feeling that.
Blades. Yeah. Everybody's feeling that. Every single person you talk to can relate on that. Now, they might have a different idea of why the cost of living is going up. They'll blame all sorts of different things. They'll say corporations are trying to screw us. The government is raising taxes too much. I mean, there's all sorts of things.
Tariff.
And there's all of those things do impact it, but that people are being gaslit and said this is the only reason, and this other thing that is also part of the problem is part of the solution, and all this, everybody's being lied to, right? So, I mean, once you start to have that conversation, it's fairly easy to bridge it to, hey, here's this other system that stores your value. The cost of living is actually going down. I mean, how many people have been orange pilled by that image of the cost of the house
Yes.
priced in dollars compared to the price of Bitcoin, right? It's gone from 400 and something Bitcoin for a price of a house in the last few years to 6.6 Bitcoin. It's just the house is getting cheaper, and housing is such an issue because that's such a big part of the cost of living. So if you can convey that to somebody efficiently enough, they'll begin to understand, hey, I can just hold this and things get cheaper. It can be that simple. You don't need to know everything else about it.
Right.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah, if you just tell them that nobody can print Bitcoin, I think that really resonates with people, because I feel like slowly people are seeing what causes inflation, and kind of what Forrest was saying there. There's a bunch of different theories, but I think people are slowly getting to the realization that it is caused by people printing money. And every dollar that they print, yours becomes less valuable. And nobody has the ability to print more Bitcoin. So pretty simple. Keep it simple. Do you guys have any last thoughts before we wrap up here? This was a good one.
I think I'm good.
Yeah,
I think
same.
that got the point across for me.
Okay. Well, congrats, Rajat. Beard looks good. Barber was paid in real currency, sound money. And yeah, we got the QR code there right beside Forrest's head. So you can, if you want to, if you enjoyed this, if you learned anything from it, if you want to see more of what we're doing here, you can support us through that route. We also have a Maple Bitcoin School community now, which has been buzzing. We got over 150 people now from around this world, different parts of the world, who are all part of that community there. So consider joining that. We're going to have the links to that in the show notes and in the pinned comments. And we got a once per week happy hour where we do a private session with all the members. We got a bunch of exclusive content on there for you to watch if you're wanting to learn more about Bitcoin. And just a great community of people from around the world. You can, a lot of people don't have the Bitcoiner in their life that they can talk to. So this is kind of a meeting place for that, the water cooler. So thanks, fellas. Great one today. And if you're watching on your phone and you can't use that QR code, you can also send it to maplebitcoin@coinos.io. So thanks, fellas. Catch you on the next one.